Welcome to Healing Your Families. We're continuing our theme on nurturing our children, and I have an expert on that today. I am so proud to introduce Angela Meyers, and she is the founder of Kudos for Families. This is a nonprofit organization she has established to support families. I love it. Angela, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you. I have watched what you've done and loved what I have seen and how you're supporting families. So I'm thrilled to be with you today. It's going to be awesome.
This is a subject that's near and dear to our hearts, isn't it?
Totally. Yes.
Well, I would love to hear the story of Kudos for Families. Tell us how that came to be.
Well, basically, when I was going to school, I got my degree in psychology and then I got a master's in family life education. And at the time, we had no children. And it turns out that we ended up being married for 5 years and finally adopting our first child. So I had all this parenting knowledge, but no experience. And but it was where I felt I really wanted to spend my life's work or my emphasis in life, because family is like number one priority to me, so huge. And so then I took time out and raised my children. I had they have a lot of special needs. We had a lot of busy times with that kind of thing. Most of my kids are moved out. I have one daughter at home. She's graduating high school this year. So I took that time out, and yet during that time I thought to myself, I remember one day thinking, oh my gosh, parenting is so hard. And I thought, if I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, I've got the book learning and now I've got the kids, why is it so hard? And so I started to make a tool. I kind of worked with my father, who did a lot of parenting. He taught all over the country in Canada. And I worked with him and I developed a program called Kudos for Kids, where I took everything that I knew and I put it into a chart and a system. And so I used that with my family, but didn't do a lot in the community as far as parenting. Then now, a couple of years ago, I just felt this urge to get out there and to help people. And I thought, I don't have time for this, but I felt a desire and an urging that it was something that I needed to do. And so I thought, how best can I do this? And at first I started just trying to share all my father's stuff. And then it turned out to be where I needed to do my own thing and bring things up to the current, time period where we use Zoom and we use virtual learning. And so I decided to start a nonprofit, because my main goal is to support and help families, give them tools, give them classes. I've done a summit recently, just anything that I can to get tools into the hands of parents. I just felt like it's so critical. And I may be one person doing a little tiny bit, but if through my little tiny bit, I can help any family, it makes me super happy. And I don't know, today I was working with a class that I'm teaching, and one of the parents said, when I heard there was going to be a parenting class, I thought, do I really want to go? And she said, but I've been in the class and I have learned so many things. And now she's realizing there are different ways to do things. And she's teaching her family in different ways, instead of criticizing, instead of, just doing what comes naturally, which isn't always the best. She's learned skills. So that's my goal in doing this, is to have this nonprofit, to do whatever I can to help anybody who will listen.
I love it. I love it. Now, I'm also intrigued by the topic you chose for today, and it's one that I completely agree with.
Good.
We have this objective. We have the unique position of working our way out of a job, right? As parents, that's what we do.
Such a good way to put it. I love that. We do. I think a lot of people nowadays are concerned because there seems to be an epidemic or just a huge number of kids who are unable to adult. It says if they're grown up, they're supposed to launch, they're supposed to leave the nest, and they're not leaving the nest. They're staying home. They're living in their parents' basements or house for years, as 25, 30-year-olds. Or if they leave the home, they're failing. They're not able to keep their job, to pay their bills. And so that's something that I'm super passionate about, is teaching children to work and giving them responsibilities, because I feel that work is one of the best things you can do for your children. They learn to be responsible. They learn to see a job through. They learn to problem solve. They learn pride in a good job done. They learn confidence. They learn how to adult. They learn so many characteristics and skills just from being given responsibilities and feeling that load and that weight. And I feel like nowadays we've gone from family centered to child centered, where everything's focused just on the child, and the child doesn't have to do anything, but everybody's running around serving, helping, taking care of the child, making sure they never have any pain, they never have any work. And it's a disservice, I feel. I don't know. What do you think?
I totally agree with that. To me, the irony is we're so concerned about children having good self-esteem. We want them to believe in themselves. So we tell them all these good things. You're strong, you're capable, you can do anything. But the reality is you gain confidence by doing. If we
Yeah.
would let them take on that hard task that looks like it's just too much for them, but they did it,
Yes.
that's going to do more for their confidence, their self-esteem, than all of the attention and the the the, the awards and the trophies and everything else. Just, I think that is a much more meaningful source of our sense of self when we become confident through competence.
Absolutely. We had a gentleman here yesterday who was working on our handicap bathroom. There was a problem with a curtain rod, and he was doing some figuring out, and he was problem solving as we sat there and just had ideas and was just really forward thinking. And I appreciated that. And I told him that. And you know what he said to me? He said, when I was young, I lived on a farm, and my mom would say to me, you need to go lift all that heavy stuff. And he said, I can't. And his mom said, go figure it out. And he said on many, many occasions, he remembers getting a job and sitting there and just being so angry and thinking and thinking and thinking. But then he figured out a way to do it. And that gave him confidence and also increased his brain ability to problem solve and work through things. I thought that was a great example of how learning those things as a youth really pay off as an adult, because I can see him using those skills now in my bathroom, trying to, figure things out that we need to figure out there. So yes, they definitely need that experience and real life experience, not made up service projects or made up something. They need things where they're really contributing, where they really feel a need, and they get that sense of pride and that sense of confidence and that can-do attitude, and they then are prepared to be adults. And like you said, we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. We are training them. It's kind of like we have a mini adult school going on in our homes, and because we want them to succeed. We don't want them to be dependent upon us forever. And it reminds me too of the chicken and the eggshell. You've heard that, right? Where if a baby chick inside of an eggshell, they peck, 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 then it stops and it rests, and the peck, 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 can't breathe, taking his breath, and finally pecks and gets a little tiny spot of the shell cracked, and then stops and then keeps going. And they found that if someone on the outside goes and cracks that shell, what happens is that baby chick will die. And the reason for that is the chick has not been required to work and to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think that's kind of with our kids. We keep breaking the shell for them. And then they're not strong enough. They're unable to go out there and succeed. And we want them to be happy, but we're trying when they're young to give them everything, and then they don't have the skills. So
it's that interesting balance. Of course, we want to raise them with love and tenderness.
yes.
We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them, but I love that analogy. Sometimes the most important lesson they can learn is that they're not going to always get what they want, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They need to learn how to handle disappointment.
So true.
So there's that part of that upbringing. And then it's such a delicate process. We start out with this helpless infant who needs 24/7 care. We make all decisions for them. And it's this delicate dance,
Yes,
of stepping in when you're needed, when it's the right thing to do, and
mm-hmm.
stepping back when it's time to let them have that. How many mothers have nervously watched their toddler pouring a glass of milk from that gallon jug for the first time and just ready to catch?
Yes.
But it's that they need that, and
mm-hmm.
they need we think we don't ever want them to be hurt. And we feel like, oh, I love my child too much to ask them to vacuum the living room.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to think carefully. Am I doing this because it is truly in the best interest of my child? Or am I doing this for me?
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing this because it will make me feel good?
Yes, or even sometimes we have that pride as a parent. We think that in order to say that I'm a good parent, I'm doing a good job, my child has to turn in that A+ report. So I'm helping the child instead of letting the child learn and getting a C. We just jump in too much. And sometimes also, I think as parents, we're busy. Sometimes it's faster to go vacuum the floor ourselves than to nag and get them to do it. And that's why we have to have our environment in the home set up so that there are consequences, so that there are rewards, incentives, so they get that internal locus of control where they want to do a good job, they want to contribute. But yes, I totally hear what you're saying. We don't know what to do. We feel like we're showing love by giving everything, by rescuing from every pain and everything, and yet we're taking away, we're actually handicapping our children if we take those opportunities to feel the pain and to problem solve. And I also agree with you, totally not saying we're not loving and we're not nurturing, but just the balance of give and take. When do I turn it over to them? When do I need to take over? We're not going to let the little tiny child run out into the street. That's not
No.
appropriate, and yet we're not going to make the teenager hold our hand. And I love the whole idea of transferring control with our teenagers. I think so often that dance, we're not sure of the dance. We're not sure when we should turn over the control to the teenager.
It's scary.
It's really scary. Sending them off with the car for the first time when they're driving. Yeah, everything is just scary. And we don't necessarily trust them. Their brains aren't formed for years, after that. And yet, I think transferring a little bit at a time is the key, where they're showing us we can trust them. We give them a little bit more. They mess up, we draw back a little bit. We talk to them. Hey, that was probably not a good choice. Let's maybe wait a couple weeks and see how you do, and kind of just give them the opportunity to test and prove themselves. But I like comparing it to the apron string. You've heard of that, right? Where you have the apron string, moms, they say, oh, he's still tied to his mama's apron strings. And we kind of make fun of people that are too dependent on their mother. But I heard a talk once, I believe it was Patricia Holland, who, I think it was her, maybe I just made this up, but I'm pretty sure it was her, where she talked about you cut the apron string off a little at a time. You don't just yank it off when he's 18. I mean, you've been doing everything for the child, and he turns 18 and you just cut the apron string and he's on his own. No, you're training them a little at a time, cutting a little, couple inches here, couple inches there, maybe stopping for a while while he matures a little bit more. But it's about a gradual transferring from yourself to the child and how much control they have. Some of us as parents hang on to the control way too long, and we really can't control them. They are going to rebel. You can't really control another person, nor should you.
And it varies from individual to, each child. Anyone who's had more than one child knows they're not all the same.
No.
What is appropriate for one child at age 12 might not be for their younger sibling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of that, loving them enough, knowing them.
Mm-hmm.
We're using that active listening. We're listening to understand them. We're in tune with them. We know them, and trust. We need to talk about trust. That is so important, and especially in those teen years. Mm-hmm. Where we're earning their trust.
Yes.
And they're, earning ours. And then it's based on a lot of respect. I think it's so important to respect our children. And I think it's a mistake to do anything for them that they could do for themselves.
Exactly. That's one of my mottos. If they can do it for themselves, they should be doing it for themselves. If they are capable of doing their own laundry, they should be. And, I've talked with parents of 2- and 3-year-olds who are doing laundry to a certain extent. So if they can cook, they should be, if they can get their own breakfast, they should be doing it. Anything they can be doing, anything they are capable of doing, they should be doing. We shouldn't be doing it for them. It's not to say we can't serve them when they're sick or do kind things for them, but it's to say, let them do it. Let them do it. Let them fail. Let them learn. And they will be so much stronger because of it.
And we get so hung up on if a toddler doesn't get matching top and pants, then
Mhm.
oh no, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't. And yet our pride is kind of part of it. Oh my gosh, if I let them go to school that way, they're going to think I'm a bad mom. And if we can get our image out of the way,
If they're just
our
going to be
ego.
staying home, it's okay.
Yes. And I've even said it's okay if they go to school that way sometimes. And you know what? They either it doesn't matter or somebody will say something to them. And then naturally the consequence is, oh, I don't want them to say that to me. And there is a part of teaching them how it's appropriate to dress or whatever. But yes, and it is hard. And like you said about trust, that's a real big one. As parents, I think we have a hard time trusting our children. And when we rescue and when we run in and we do everything for them, we're telling them, I'm doing this for you because you're not capable or you're
Mhm.
not smart enough. I don't trust that you can do a good enough job. Um, where if we say, hey, I think you got it. You can do this. If you need my help, I'm over here. But I think you're going to be great at this. Or even just leading questions like, what do you think would be a good way to prepare for this research paper? What do you have some ideas? You want to bounce them off of me or no, I'm good. And then you have to sometimes watch them not do the assignment. They maybe have a month to do that big report and they don't do it. And you have to watch them not turn it in on time and watch them fail. And that's a real life experience. We're encouraging, but we shouldn't be nagging. We have to trust that it's their life and that they're going to learn this hard lesson and that they're smart enough to learn it. And it pretty much only takes one time. And then they're like, oh, that was bad. Don't want to repeat of that. And then they've got it.
And consider this, which would be the least damaging to your child, for them to learn in high school the importance of being responsible, or for them to learn as an adult with a family to support and getting fired from a job?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be better for them to get some poor grades in high school, but learn that responsibility?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the same thing with money. I have a large part of my program and emphasis too is that we reward kids, but I don't believe in giving kids an allowance at all. I believe, like I've heard somebody say, you should give your kids, $1,000 a month. And I'm like, who has that kind of money? And let them budget and learn how to work with it. I don't believe in that. I believe that your kids do jobs. Some of it's just to contribute to the family. Others are extras where they can earn money. And then they earn that money. And then I believe in teaching them young to budget, to say, okay, you're 6 years old, you're going to school, there's going to be a field trip, and we know you want money for the souvenirs. Well, let's look through I have them do like a little file folder of pockets that are labeled. This is if I want to buy school lunch, I call it Kudo cash. It's fake money. In my pocket, you could put real money. In my pocket, I'm going to need new shoes. I'm going to put some money in that pocket, and teaching them so young. And then later they don't have to fail because they can't budget and use their paycheck. They spend it all on, I don't know, stupid stuff and have no money to pay their bills. They're learning young and they're failing at a young age. You're saying to them, oh, you want to buy school lunch today? Go look in your pocket. Did you save any money in that pocket for school lunch? Oh, sorry. Maybe next week when we're doing our budgeting session, maybe you're going to want to stick some of your cash in there then. And then they're thinking and they're learning, oh, this is how I budget. I don't just use a credit card and go buy it. I have to think ahead. I have to plan. I have to budget. And then it's not a big deal when they are out on their own at college. And all of a sudden, boom, you're at college. You got to do your own laundry, which you've never done. You have to pay your bills, which you've never done. You have to study, which you've never done. You have to hold down a job. You have to be there on time. And mom's not going to be there to wake you up in the morning to make sure you get to your 7 a.m. shift. You've trained them. So they are ready. They're ready to go and they know they can do it. And they can do it. So much less.
Make it much easier when they leave to go off to college. It's easier on mom knowing they're prepared. They're going to be fine. They know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Easier on her, and then more confident when they know that they're capable.
Yes. And talk about having a spouse that's ready. If they get married, they both know what they're doing. There's somebody that can pay the bills and that type of thing. But yes, that's so true. I just totally believe that whatever we do when they're young is going to so pay off when they're older, and they will be more well adjusted. They won't have as much anxiety. Because because if I hadn't learned how to do things growing up, I would have been really scared as an adult moving out on my own. And there was some things I was kind of like, okay, I know how to save money. I don't have a lot of money. This is what I can spend and what I can't. But yeah, it's interesting because there's studies that show that like even though 82% of parents had chores when they were growing up, only 28% now are giving their kids chores. And I think why? Because it's easier not to. It's easier for us to do to ourselves because we want them to focus on themselves and their studies and their sports and their music and whatever. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of this failure to adult in the next few years.
How much of it would you contribute to just our society? I sense this pressure on parents. Their children must be perfectly behaved anytime they go out in public and look perfectly dressed, everything in place. But I think there's also pressure on parents. It's almost like the pendulum has swung from that mom and dad are in charge. Now it's we would not dare say anything that could possibly hurt the child's feelings.
Yes. And we're afraid. We're afraid to,
Yeah.
there's a lot of suicide. There's a lot of anxiety going on, and we're afraid. And that's why I think instead of being afraid that they're going to be hurt, give them opportunities to learn through real life to toughen up and to be stronger. But yeah, I think a lot is coming from the society where we feel like if we feel as if to be a good parent, we've got to have them in music lessons and sports, and we have to have the best schools and they have to have the best clothes. So it's gone from the parents are in charge and we're a family and you contribute to the family on the farm or whatever it might have been. It's swung clear over to the whole family revolves around the children or the one child or the two children, and the children never even give a thought to contributing to the family. And our society is so fast paced and so intense, and there's stimulus coming at us all day long. Everything's like quick. There's no learning how to work. There's no taking time with budgeting. Our kids have learned there's a disconnect between sowing and reaping. Our kids no longer have to plant the seed to reap the fruit. They go on Amazon. They use mom and dad's credit card that's always already on there. They do a quick search. They find what they want. They click the button. The next day, sometimes, the item is on the front porch. They didn't have to learn to work for it. They didn't have to earn the money for it. And the thing that they got doesn't mean as much. I have seen kids when they've earned money for their own things, clothes, sports equipment, whatever it is, I've seen them appreciate it more. I have seen them be so proud of themselves that they earned that. And they're not entitled because they've learned to work. They've learned if I want something, I'm not going to hold my hand out. If I want something, I know how to plan ahead and how to work and get what I want. And so society, it's a tough time in society right now because we're worried about their psyche. And I think that's great. And I worry about that too. I'm really concerned about that. And I think nurturing and loving is so important and cherishing our children. But I think we're dropping the ball on the other hand by not requiring them to be responsible and respectful and those kinds of things.
You used a word I want to emphasize, entitled.
Entitled.
What is the impact not only on individuals, but on society when we raise a generation that feels entitled? I'm a retired high school teacher, and I saw the effects of it always came easy. They always got what they wanted. I honestly dealt with some students. I don't think any adult had ever told them no before.
Yes.
And it's not fair to them. You mentioned sometimes it's easier for the parents. Just, keep the peace in the home. Just do it for them. Just give them what they want so they'll stop making noise. But I think it's critical, and you may cover this in your program, that we always keep our focus. What is in the child's best interest? Will this help them become a self-reliant adult? And if the answer is no, then don't do it.
Exactly. And that's why, like, giving a handout, I think allowance is a handout.
Unless they learned
it. And then they learn, oh, I just moved out of the house. Where's my allowance? Where's my
Yes.
handout? There's a story.
Well,
Go
there are
ahead.
a lot of children, adult children, who are still being supported by mom and dad, even after they've moved out of the house.
Yes. And sometimes there's a need if there's a problem, if there's a medical issue, sometimes there's a need, but in general, most of the time it's just because they're drowning. They're
There's the
drowning.
pattern.
Doesn't matter. And I heard a story, and I can't remember the guy's first name, Townsend, and he tells a story in his book about two parents who came to him. They were supposed to be there with their young
Matt
adult son.
Townsend.
Matt, thank you. Yes, and they were supposed to be there with their young adult son, and he said, they're like, you got to help us with this kid. He's failing out of college. We got him a condo so he didn't have to worry about rent. He doesn't have to work. All he's got to do is pay attention to his grades and hopefully get a job later, but he just won't do anything. Whatever we do, he just fails out of it, or he can't do anything. And the therapist said to them, so you're here today, where is he? And they said, well, he's out on the slopes skiing. And the therapist said, he's not the one with the problem. You're the ones with the problem. He's not bothered. He's happy. His life is great. He's ecstatic. Everything he wants to do is paid for. Why should he work and go to school? Why should he work hard on his studies? He has no need to get a job to support the things he wants to do because it's all provided. You've provided the house for him to live in. You've provided the schooling. You've provided everything. He's not here because he doesn't see that he has a problem. You're here because you think he has a problem. But the problem is that you are giving him everything, doing everything for him. He's not suffering. You are. And I go back to the whole problem ownership thing. Whose problem is it? The parents took everything on themselves, made his problems their problems, wiped away his problems, and now he's free and happy and, happy as a bird, as a lark, just off doing whatever he wants. And I think that's an important lesson for us as parents. Whose problem is it? If we're taking over the problem that they should be taking care of, we're again giving them a handicap, doing a disservice for them. He didn't feel a need to go to school because he didn't feel a need to have a job because he was happy. All the money he wanted to ski and to play and do anything he wanted. So yeah, problem ownership is a big thing too.
But we don't wait till that age. We start when they're young. I've noticed the irony is when children are little, they want to be with you. They want to do what you're doing. And we're telling them, no, let me just get the floor swept.
I'm going to fold the clothes. I'm folding the clothes. Yes.
I think go ahead, get them involved, start them as soon as they're interested in what you're doing and they want to be there too. Yes, it will take you a lot longer, but look at the long-term benefits.
Mm-hmm. And we're raising children. We're training children. And I have found also, because this is what I do, parents with younger children aren't really concerned. When they become teenagers and young adults and the problems start showing up that have been kind of underlying, then they're all worried. And yeah, you can do something at that point, but how much better it is for you, for your children, for the peace of your household to start when they're younger and to teach them. And we've all been there where the dishes aren't done right. They mess up the laundry. You're trying to fold it. They're unfolding it. And yet like you said, it's very ironic that when they want to help, they're not as capable. Later, when they're capable, they don't want to help. So somehow when they want to help, we've got to be teaching them. How do you touch the corner of each edge of the washcloth and then fold it in half and then stack it neatly? And when they want to is when we should be doing it. And the younger we start with consequences, with responsibilities, with work, with all these good values, the more intrinsic it will become within the child so that they have that in the core of who they are. So when they go off, they are capable and they're able to handle it. So
talk a bit about what it does to that parent-child relationship.
When
to me, that's golden. You want to start building that rapport, that
yes,
trust.
Yes, you're starting young and you're saying, I think you're capable. I trust you to fold that laundry. And they may not do it okay. And it might go in the drawers wrong. It might unfold before they get it to the drawers. Don't redo it.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They are going to feel so good about themselves. And so you're saying, I love you. You're doing a great job. I remember saying all the time to my kids, you're such a big helper. Wow, you helped me so much. Making a big deal out of you, this little tiny child, helped who you think is this perfect big adult parent. You helped me, and they see that. And it's good too, I think, always to let our kids see that we're not perfect, because we need to show them it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay that I burnt the food on the stove. Oh, well, we're going to figure out something else to eat. It's okay. And I'm so sorry that I was short with you and that I yelled at you, because I was just so stressed and I didn't handle myself well. So I want to apologize to you. And again, I had someone in my class today talk about how she had been a little sharp with her child, and she wrote a note. She said, "I'm sorry," and wrote a note, put something extra in their Kudos for Kids chart. And the child wrote her a note back and said, "It's okay." And this relationship is a relationship of love, of give, of take, of understanding, of if there's a problem, a misunderstanding, we can talk, we can take care of it. And there's an ebb and flow, and there's a give and take. And that strengthens the relationship, so that when they're teenagers and things are harder, they still trust you. They know that you trust them. There is,
You've invested time.
Yeah, you've invested time, and it's a positive relationship. And being with mom or dad is a positive, good thing, because they have confidence in me, because they want the best for me, and because they make mistakes and I make mistakes, and it's okay. We're human beings, and we're still going to love each other, and we're keeping that communication, that trust, and everything open. So yeah, the younger you start, the better.
Now I'm getting curious about your Kudos for Kids. Talk about that. Tell me, it
Oh,
sounds like you have a whole program with materials and a
I do.
system.
I do. Like I mentioned before, I was thinking to myself, parenting is dang hard, and I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And if it's hard for me, it's got to be hard for other people. And so I was able to make a system where I put everything that I wanted, and it got bigger and bigger. It got more and more, because I'd say, okay, I just need my kids to do their chores, or I just need my kids to do their own responsibilities. So I have the chart, and there are a lot of components on the chart. At the bottom of the chart, you start with I call them the My Stuff cards. So the My Stuff cards are their personal responsibilities, like get up on time, brush your teeth, comb your hair, have your bath, make your lunch for school, get everything ready in your backpack. Then later it would be practice your piano lessons, do your homework, do your 30 minutes of reading. So those are on a ring that they hang on a lanyard around their neck. And then two of those cards, one says daily job and one says weekly job. And as a mom, I have a big pile of cards of everything I could ever want done in my home. I thought of everything I could think of. I even thought of, I lived in Southern California, but I put shoveling snow in there, stuff like that, because I wanted to work for all parents. And so I had, like, if I noticed that the windowsill needed to be dusted, I take that card, and there's a hook. There are two hooks on each kid's chart, and one's a daily job and one's a weekly job. So on the daily job, I put clean the windowsills. And the weekly job might be something like feed the pet for the week. So it's something they do for an entire week. So when they go through their My Stuff cards, they see in there all their personal things, but then they have to contribute to the family with the daily and weekly job. And then I have parents pay the kids a very small amount of money for that, because that is something they kind of should be doing anyway, but we want to give a little reward so that they feel like, okay, there's a reason to do it. And with that, parents should never have to nag, because there are reward systems built in, incentive programs built in. And then there's a little pocket, and in the pocket you can write love notes. I would stick little pieces of gum, little things I got at the 99-cent store. So it's like a little positive place for the family to put things that they are thinking about the other person. And then from that, you go to all kinds of different things. Like I have family spirit cards. They're called the heart to heart cards. And later at the end of this, I actually have a freebie where you can get a portion of this chart to do on your own at home. And if that's the only thing you ever did, it would make a huge difference. It's called the I'd Be Happy To game. But that is where, like, let's say you're noticing the manners are really bad, or you're noticing nobody's saying please and thank you, or you need more family spirit. You grab that card, and whenever it's hanging on the chart, you give the kids more rewards if they do those things. So the whole point of the chart is to reward the positive behavior like crazy, because when you do that, the negative stuff kind of goes to the side. And I believe that what you feed grows and what you starve dies. That's a basic behavior modification principle, that whatever you're paying attention to is going to grow. So if you have stinky, whiny, ornery kids, it's because that's what's paying off in your home. If you want cooperative, happy, hardworking kids, that has to pay off. And so we're giving them these little extrinsic rewards, and yet it becomes internalized. And then they realize, I like to work. I like to do a good job. I like to contribute to the family. And then we go on up. There's a goal setting section. There's a trust bank section where you have to earn trust. And that's a card for, oh, you didn't come home from your friends at the time you told me. So your trust bank, we're going to flip the card around. And now it says, I'm working on trust. I'm building trust. And then there's just a lot to it. But anyway, I wanted everything included. I was so busy. I couldn't remember everything. I would think, okay, now we're focusing on scouts. Okay, now we're focusing on these reports or the school stuff. Now we're focusing on the family activity, I just couldn't keep track of it all. So I put it all into one system and just used it, shut my mouth and let it work. And it has consequences built in, it has rewards built in. Anyway, it's kind of just a basic, everything I wanted.
Well, I'm thinking, again, preparing them for adulthood. You're also teaching them how to be a good friend, how to earn trust with friends, how to get along with others, how to be a good employee.
And if you're working on family spirit, that's going to translate to team spirit or workplace spirit. If you're working on good manners at home, they're going to use those elsewhere. So yes, it's just everything.
And then when they get married, they'll know how to treat their spouse.
Yes. So true. And I'm reminded of the story you told of your parents and contention and how they worked things out. And you as a child watched your parents for several days get through this problem that they had.
Yeah, if parents just knew, some parents will say, oh, well, I don't want to force my values on my child. Well, guess what? They already know what your values are because they watch how you live. They watch what you do.
Yes, they totally watch. And I think if you
don't, the most powerful teacher for your child is your example.
What is that saying about a sermon? You can say as much as you want, but it's what you do that I'm actually watching. Can't remember, shouldn't have even brought that up, but yes, they're watching you. And if you're not teaching them values, as parents, we need to, as people, I think, are living up to what we think is our values. We've studied, we've thought, we've worked through things of what our values are. And I think we have every right as parents to teach our children those values. Not only every right, but I think a great responsibility to teach those values.
It is a responsibility. And to teach them why. Why is having a clean and orderly home important?
And why is it? Why should we talk nicely to people? Why should we be kind to others? And if we don't teach them our values, which we have studied and thought about and really feel true and strong to, if we don't teach them, they are open to whoever else out there in the world wants to teach them some values. And they are really at the mercy of everybody out there.
And they will choose for themselves when they're in those teen years. They're going to start pulling away and making their own choices. But don't we want them to have the best information possible to make their choice?
Yes, totally. And it's not like we're trying to brainwash them. We've done our work, and this is what we truly believe in. And we are sharing that with them and teaching them so that they can learn the most important values for life, so they can grow up and be happy. And parents often, that's the big thing. I just want my kids to be happy. I just want my kids to be happy. And then I'm thinking, well, we want our kids to be happy, yes. But is the way to their happiness giving them everything for their entire lives? What happens when you die? They're going to be unhappy because there's nobody to fill that happiness out.
Everyone needs to learn that difference between just happiness in the moment, you got what you wanted, and long term.
Yes.
Is it going to bring you that joy, that long term sustaining?
Yes. And we need
to learn contentment with life.
Yes. And that delayed gratification. I don't have to get married and have everything my parents have now. In fact, going to debt to get all of that. Delayed gratification, that we can wait. We don't have to have everything now, and that it's worth waiting. It's worth working. It's worth earning. And just knowing that with everything, even in relationships, if our kids don't know how to delay gratification, they're not going to be able to develop the relationships. Relationships take time. They take effort. They take energy. And our kids need to have those skills. And they're going to learn those from us. And if all we do is fight around them and argue and scream and yell and nag and and have altercations with our spouse or our partner, they're going to learn that that's how you have a relationship, and they're not going to be very good at it. So we really have to look at ourselves and see, what example are we setting? How are we portraying living as a good adult? I don't even know the right term. I don't know the term, but anyway, how are we portraying adulthood and how things need to be worked through? So I love that example of your parents, because they showed you
Yeah.
it took several days.
Most powerful lesson I have ever had.
And very entertaining for you, because you said it was better than
Yes,
a TV show.
it was fascinating.
And they weren't yelling angry. You knew they were unhappy, but it's not
They
like they were.
both had a very strong opinion on how they wanted it to be,
Yes.
but their love show was shining through.
Mhm.
They were respectful and polite. They listened to each other.
Mhm.
It was
Yes.
like watching a game of tennis.
Yes, I love that. And that took time. It
Yeah.
didn't just happen in an
Yeah.
instant. So yeah,
It
definitely.
did. It did. So you offer this system. They can get this through your Kudos for Families, through your nonprofit. And you also have parenting classes. Is that right?
Yes. Right now, the main class that's on there, I just completed a whole 12 session course that I'm going to be recording in the next couple months, and that will be offered. I'm kind of new at the whole thing and putting things on there. So basically, they can go on to kudosforfamilies.com, and I think you can go to kudosforkids.com, and it takes you right to the Kudos for Kids charts and the whole system. So the main course I have right now is I have a 10 module course on how to use the system. It's not to say it's that hard and overwhelming. It's just to say I'm walking you step by step through everything, as if I'm sitting in your home with you, telling you what worked for me, where I took everything that I knew and everything that I wanted and put it. So that's the course that's on there. But I do also have the freebie. Do you want me to explain that right now?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay, it's called the I'd Be Happy To game. One of the best things ever. Parents absolutely love this game. So you remember I was talking about the chart, and on the chart, there's a hook for the heart-to-heart games, which are like the learning how to say thank you, family spirit, those things. One of the things from that chart is the I'd Be Happy To card. And the I'd Be Happy To card, it's basically a game, and it's getting parents to focus and children to focus on positive. And so you know how you come home sometimes and you're asking your kids, hey, can somebody help me get stuff out of the car? And they just keep sitting there playing their game or whatever. Or they're like, yeah, I'll help. And they don't help. And you're like, I have been working. You're pulling grocery bags off your shoulders. You see the big mess that's all over the house. And you're thinking, why am I doing everything? Why won't they help when I ask? So the I'd Be Happy To game says that, okay, when we're doing the I'd Be Happy To game and the card is on your chart, and you don't have to have the chart. With the freebie, I'm just giving you the cards and little tokens. Instead of Kudo Cash, you have a little happy face tokens. And so when we're playing the I'd Be Happy To game, anytime I ask you and you tell your kids, you know how I'm always asking you to do stuff and I'm nagging at you? I'm done with that. Now, anytime I ask you to do something, if you say I'd be happy to and go do it right away with a smile, you're going to get a happy face token. And then, there has to be something tied to that token, right? What are they going to do with them? So what it is you have a list of privileges, or you have a treasure box, or a, what do you call it? A treat bucket. And so you say, okay, the treat bucket, it takes 2 happy faces or 5 happy face tokens to get in the treat bucket. And there are items in the treasure box that you got from the dollar store, or you got from the kids' meal, and it's stuff that they want, or it's their favorite toothpaste or a pencil sharpener or whatever. And then they know that those things cost a certain number of happy face tokens. Then the third thing you have, so you've got the treat bucket, the treasure box. The third thing is you have a list of privileges, and you sit down with them and you say, what do you want to do that I'd never let you do? I want to sleep in your room. I want you to read stories to me. I want to have a pizza party with my friends. You let them think of everything they can think of. You write it all down on the list and you're like, you can have this. We're playing the I'd Be Happy To game. And then next to each thing that you approve of course, you have, okay, to sleep overnight at Grandma and Grandpa's, it takes 20 tokens. 20 happy faces. To have mom and dad read you a story, it takes 2. To sleep in mom's dad's bedroom on the floor, oh, that's a big one because you know they all want it. So you're like, okay, that takes 10. But I have a family, and I've mentioned them before. I have a family who that's like the biggest thing for their kids. She says, I don't think we'll ever be able to sleep in our bedroom alone anymore, because that was highly motivating for them. So that list of privileges is things that are highly motivating, and it's tied to the tokens. So you have 3 things that they can earn tokens for: treats, treasures, and privileges. And then you are going to be surprised because they just go crazy. You say, oh, I'm just really thirsty. I wish I had a drink of water. And they're like, oh, mom, I'd be happy to get you a drink of water. And then they run and do it. And you just reward, positives, nothing but positives all day long, just saying, I love you. You're great. And they just get on fire about it. They love it so much. In fact, I was talking to my older son and he said, oh, I remember the I'd be happy to game. I remember when Christopher and Nathaniel didn't want to do something and I would do it. And I got so rich, so it's just a fun little game. And I just love people to try it because it works, and it works like within a day, just like that. Your kids are going to be saying, I'd be happy.
You're shifting from the negative to a positive, giving them choice. They don't have to do it.
They don't.
But you're making it, with love, and I love your tone of voice, the way you talk to them. And you're showing that I think it's important for children to feel unconditional love. Their parents love them no matter what. Yes. You will still love them, even if they don't want to play the I'd be happy to game. That's fine. You still love them. But they're going to, once they see it's just love, I'm not being manipulated, they'll want to play it.
It's just for fun. And then they see
it's just fun.
They don't want to do it one day, whatever. You don't say anything.
Yeah.
Don't you want to say I'd be happy to so you can get a token? You say nothing, but they see the sibling. Oh my gosh, the sibling just got to have friends over to watch a movie. Wow, I want that. And then they start and they get excited. And I love to tell parents, when you're first starting, you say, okay, we're going to play this game. You say, who wants to give me a hug? And then one of the kids says, you're like, would you be happy to? You have to kind of prompt. And they're like, I'd be happy to. And then they just give you a big old hug and you just hand out the token. And they have like a little yogurt container or something where they store their little happy face tokens. And it's just one of the best things. And parents, they love it. And the kids go crazy over it. And it lasts. It works. Unless you stop rewarding, it will work forever. Unless you have nothing in your treat bucket, nothing to chip on.
You're feeding the positive and starving the negative.
You're not nagging. Help me. Why didn't you all help me? Don't you know I've been working hard all day? I'm so tired. How many times do I have to ask you to help me? And then you wait till you get out there and help me bring in the groceries. I do all the work around. Look at the mess in the kitchen. No, you're like, oh, the kitchen looks a little messy. Who wants to help me clean up? Oh, I'd be happy to because I'm trying to earn something. It's not given to them. And it's stuff that you might normally give them anyway. You probably read your little kids' stories.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be earning it and so proud and happy. And
and you appreciate something more when you have earned it.
Yes. More exciting. Yeah. So it's all good. Just loving them unconditionally, separating the behavior from the love. But I think emphasizing the positive is huge. Remember, what you feed grows, what you starve dies. So if I'm not paying attention to the fact that they're not helping me and nagging them and trying to get them to do it, instead I'm focusing on the kid that's doing such a great job, the others are going to be watching that and they're going to be thinking, oh, not only you're getting positive attention. And if you're not giving them good attention, they're going to be going after the negative. My dad said, bad breath is better than no breath. Meaning it's better to have bad breath than to die because you have no breath. So bad attention is better than no attention. So if our kids aren't getting any attention from us except for when they're bad, that's going to increase the poor behavior. So anyway.
Absolutely. Angela, I have loved this. So how do people contact you? You have a lot of value to give parents.
Should I share my screen and just show you?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, I might have to just take just a second.
Share your screen and say it, because
so we have it there.
Some people will be listening while they're driving or something, but
sorry, I'm getting to it. Just a second. Let me scroll down to here. Sorry about that. I meant to have this ready. So right here is the I'd be happy to game, and I have a QR code for those who are watching. You can just, grab your phone and open up the camera and you can get that. That will take you to the web page where you can download all of this. So there are videos that you can watch that talk to you about how to do it, as well as, sorry, this should be on full screen. There are videos that you can watch that tell you how to do the program, give you ideas. Sometimes I have a challenge and I say, hey, let's do the challenge. But just go to the QR code or go to kudosforfamilies.com and then just look for the freebies section. It'll be right there.
Kudosforfamilies.com.
KUDOS for families.com. We're kind of covering the QR code, but I will make sure that I send that to you. can't figure out how to move
No,
this.
I can see the QR code.
You can? Okay, it's covered
Yeah.
for me. Okay, so that is great. Do that, try it. And if you do it, come and, email me or something and tell me, because I love to hear stories and I love to share stories about how this changes families overnight, and literally overnight. It works so well. So let me show you. The next screen is just, sorry. Oh, hang on. Wait, here we go. Oh, that's what the Kudos for Kids looks like. The tiny chart is for little kids, 3 to 5 or 3 to 4. The other one's from about 5 to 14, and the Kudo Cash is on the right there. I didn't even realize this one was on here. And then, oh, there we go. Sorry to be a little confused. So kudosforfamilies.com is the nonprofit website. You can also follow us on, I say us, it's me, Kudos for Families on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to contact me, there's my email, and I'd love to hear your stories. So there it is.
Awesome.
So this has been so good. I love chatting with you, Emma-Lou, because we have the same thoughts on families, and we just really want positive outcomes for families.
Yes. Let's make the world a better place by strengthening families.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, viewers. Join us again next week. We have an expert talking about teenagers, that special age.
That's a good one. I'm going to be listening. Mine are all, but I'm still going to be listening because that's a hard age. So
it is. That's where you earn your parenting badge.
Yes. You're like, oh my gosh. I remember looking at one of my kids and saying, he was so sweet growing up. He's the kind of, you ask him to share a cookie with another kid, he would break it a little piece off, keep the little piece and give the rest of the cookie away. And I remember when he was a teenager, I just like took him and I just took his cheeks like this. And I said, I know you're in there. I know you're still in there, because you kind of wonder, but you come out of it and you find it again. Yeah.
All right. So thank you. Join us again next week at the same time. Let's make the world a better place by strengthening families. This is Emma-Lou Penrod at healingyourfamilies.com.